solutions from the street. And so, again, we always deal with a problem here on this program every other Friday on KSJE, and then invite a guest in to talk about the solution. And of course, the problem is, our overwhelmed healthcare system these days because of COVID-19, increasing patient numbers going to our local hospital, and much, much more. And the solution, of course, that comes from the street are the volunteers that give of their time and talents to help at San Juan Regional Medical Center. And there's no one better to talk about that than my guest here this morning, Teresa Becker, who is the volunteer manager at San Juan Regional Medical Center. And it's always great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks
for having me.
You bet. Thank you for coming in and talking a little bit about this really important component of healthcare. And we don't always maybe think about that. And we've certainly been hearing a lot about our doctors and nurses and support staff and just how many patients are at the hospital and how many COVID patients are at the hospital and this and that and everything else. And there is an army, a small army of volunteers that you work with that try to keep things moving as well and happening, correct?
Exactly. We're blessed to have such a generous group of people that have supported us through all this craziness. They, even when we were really locked down last year, they would call and check on us and send emails, and we were trying to check on them, making sure they were okay, and they were more worried about us. So they are wonderful, and we've been able to bring a lot of them back. Our gift market was the first area that we brought our team back, and
because you had to close it for a while during the peak of the lockdowns and things like that, right? And so that's been
no
reopened.
Visitors,
right?
And everything. The public cafe is still closed, actually, but
but the gift market is reopened.
The gift market has been reopened. It's been a vital necessity and a great resource for our employees, and our volunteers were happy to get in there and help them and make those goodies available, snacks, energy drinks, gifts, whatever they are needing.
Right. And we were talking before we came on the air this morning that the gift market is always a great resource for, of course, visitors who are coming to the hospital and want to take something to their loved one who is hospitalized. But recently we've seen the reports of the other medical workers who are here to help out with staffing, and they've been using the gift market as well as a resource for snacks and pick-me-ups, energy drinks, or whatever they need from time to time, correct? As being here and not living here.
Right. They're working many shifts, and they're making the most of their time here, which we greatly appreciate. We're really fortunate to have this opportunity, and they're in there buying gifts and things because they're not exactly having time to run out and do that elsewhere. So we're grateful for that too, and happy to be able to offer that for them. Indeed,
and I bet they're grateful too that they can just run downstairs and grab something on a break when they do get one, which maybe are few and far between. But they get them.
Right.
Yeah. So there you go. Remind us how many volunteers roughly that you have any given time at the hospital.
It's changed quite a bit. 2 years ago, it was around 120 total. We're dealing with a group of about 50 right now.
Okay.
And part of that, our teen program is ebb and flow every year. And I lost 33 teens last year who graduated and moved on to college.
Darn those kids that get older and graduate, right? Yeah. So that's normal. That is probably a normal thing that happens.
That was our highest group to date.
That sounds like a big number, yeah.
Yeah, it was great to have them and have that resource, but then to have them depart, and the normal cycle of bringing new teens on board didn't really happen, and so we've got a little lull there. We'll regroup when we can, but so our dedicated adult volunteers and a few teens are still around, and just offering whatever support and service they can. Many can't come in yet or choose not to, and we're okay with that, and we want to keep everybody safe, but they are really the army behind the scenes and from their homes, and they're making blankets, they're making baby stockings for the babies born in December. They're doing all of those kinds of projects and keeping that purpose alive and still supporting our patients.
which is great. And so that's a good point, I think, too, for folks who maybe want to help or be a volunteer. And maybe there's not a job for them at the hospital proper, there's still things that they could do from home that supports the efforts of the hospital and really can brighten a patient's day and things along that line, some of those projects that you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. If they don't sew or don't feel crafty, there's a place for everyone and a project for everyone. We've had school groups even making cards, tray favors. The college has always been helpful, helping provide tray favors for our patients even. We've got cards from our community all over the hospital for both caregivers and our patients, and that's really, really important and has been uplifting. Just anywhere from kids that can barely write, or maybe they get some help, they're drawing the cute little pictures, but up to adults just showing their support and care of all of our caregivers too. It's wonderful.
Right. We've seen that a lot the past 2 years. I think even more than usual, of course, because of all the extra attention being put on the hospital and the workers and just the extra cases they're being asked to manage and patients that they're seeing and all the things that we hear about in the news these days is what's been happening. And some private businesses too, right, that step forward. And one just happened this week that I wanted to ask you about, just because it happened, I guess literally yesterday, right? And these were employees that came together to do something for the hospital.
Yes, Home Depot reached out and they rallied. This was not a corporate donation. This was our local employees from our local store, and they all pitched in out of their own pockets enough money to buy the stockings and a lot of goodies, games and socks and all kinds of wonderful things to put in the stockings, and they provided us with 100 stockings yesterday, which was awesome. And we can't thank them enough. That was very generous of them.
Very nice. Well, thank you, Home Depot. And again, just one example. There are certainly many other businesses that step forward throughout the year to do similar things for the hospital, for sure.
We've received amazing donations, anything from food and snacks for the staff, patient. This time of year, people are really generous, especially for pediatric patients. We seem to get a lot of gifts, and nobody wants to have kids sick in the hospital, but adults too. And it's a little tricky this year because if they're COVID patients, what they can have in their rooms is a little challenging. So, but we do want to support everyone in any way we can. So if somebody's interested in what they can do to help, they're welcome to call me.
Very good. And I'll ask you to probably share that number so that they can call you and find out what they can do and what could be really useful for the folks at the hospital. What's the best number to call?
609-6156.
Okay. And we'll repeat that again at the end of the program, everybody. So, but 609
6156.
6156 is Teresa Becker, the volunteer manager at Salmon Regional Medical Center. She's our guest this morning on our Solutions from the Street program. We talk about problem in the community and the solution. And of course, the volunteer program at the hospital has been around for a number of times. It predates both of us. So, it's older than we are. See there? I knew you would know that date. But it's really been a really supporting arm of the hospital since its very beginnings, right? And it was formed to do just that very thing.
Exactly. And the stories are awesome. I get to periodically go through the scrapbooks that they've kept on all of the projects and the funding. Like our gift market is actually a fundraiser. So we raise funds, provide equipment, scholarships, things like that. And they've been doing that for years and years and years.
That's wonderful. I do want to ask you about that too, because that is something that the volunteer program, the auxiliary, has helped out with over the years at the hospital, is to be able to maybe fund some pretty expensive equipment and needed equipment from time to time at the hospital. And so can you give me a couple examples of some of that?
Oh gosh. Oh no, it's a pop quiz.
It is a pop quiz.
Well, I can speak to the most recent donation that they made. Definitely. We haven't actually got to see these items yet. It's We donated $54,000 towards sofa beds that will be used in the new pediatric ward that will, it's coming soon, hopefully. So that's in the works, but we definitely wanted to earmark that money and have that. That was an important project for them.
Nice, right. We talked about that, the renovation plans for the pediatric floor at the hospital and what that will be used for. And so I'm thinking that maybe that would be put in rooms if mom or dad want to stay the night or something.
Right.
Is that how that could be useful?
Yes, and a much more comfortable setting, and the configuration now, it's just out of necessity, but it's not the most comfortable arrangement. The rooms are smaller, and it's not a sofa bed by any means. It's more like a chair that sort of reclines,
Yeah,
or,
and maybe a footstool or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
Just not the most comfortable situation, but they're going to be there with their child,
right.
And so we want to help make the most of it. And those things are pretty impressive. They configure into different, pull out things and storage and all kinds of things.
Have a multi-use, I guess, is what we would call it,
yes.
right? So there you go. And how many are you able to buy?
I think
it's $54,000. You said, right?
I think it's 12.
Okay.
12.
And $54,000, that's a lot of energy drinks you sold.
Yes.
At the market to come up with that. So it does add up.
It does add up.
And so when folks are buying things, they can know that is part of a fundraiser that you give back to the hospital.
Definitely.
And you mentioned scholarships too, which is another part of that money that is raised that I want to ask you about as well, because that really helps kind of pay it forward in another important way.
Right. We are dedicated to helping build future caregivers as well. So we support community members. We support our employees who are already working there that want to advance or just increase their career paths or education. And so we definitely allocate money. In fact, we'll be meeting next week to make decisions on those who applied for the spring 2022 semester, which we can't even believe we're talking about 2022. But
right, here we are.
Coming upon us. So we award those folks up to $1,000 per semester. We've helped tons of San Juan College students.
Thank you, right.
Of course, people going through the nursing program, EMT program. There's many specialties. Basically anything, any career that would benefit San Juan Regional, we're supporting that, and so we're proud of that. We also fund scholarships for our teen volunteers, and last year we awarded almost $13,000 to some of our teen volunteers. Those 33 that graduated,
yeah.
We were able to help some of them out, and they were a bunch of impressive kids. Our students are always delightful and sharp and really committed to helping out in the community as well.
Good to know, because I'm not getting any younger, so I may need their help here in a few years.
Yes,
so
yeah, we want to get them on board because we feel like they're going to be the ones taking care of us.
That's right. That's very, very true. And great. And I bet you hear stories from former volunteers, former maybe high school students who go off to college and maybe come back and maybe work at the hospital, or tell you kind of what that experience meant for them in these formative years, I guess, for these teens.
Yeah, it's fun to stay connected and keep in touch. And when they do come back, in fact, the recent Daisy Award winner, Megan, I don't know her new name. She was married, but she's only been a nurse like 2 years, and she won that award. And so that makes us proud. We feel like we helped that because she started out as a teen volunteer, and then we helped fund her with some scholarship money as well. And so it just kind of evolved. And then she came back to our community after going through her college path, and she's doing amazing things. So.
Which is wonderful, which is what you hope happens, right?
Yes.
With these teens and these young people that
Absolutely.
that you work with, and then go on to higher education and then come back. That's the idea. Now, there is a way for other folks who are in the community to help the hospital with projects and things like that without having to be a full-fledged volunteer and go through the training and things like that, right? And there's a lot of projects. You mentioned a few of them earlier that can be done that folks can do at home and then get to the hospital to donate, right, for folks.
Correct. Yep. A year ago, we would have been talking about masks.
I remember that. I remember those conversations. That's right.
I try not to say that word very much because those saints that made hundreds and hundreds of masks for the community and the hospital got pretty burdened out on it, and you can't blame them, but it was a lifesaver, literally.
This was a time, and how soon we forget that you couldn't buy them in the stores, you couldn't order them, you couldn't find them, and so these people in our community got out their sewing machines and their fabric, and they scrounged around for elastic and made masks. I mean, that's really how it was, wasn't it? They were really trying to put stuff together. So
they were up all day, all night, just sewing.
Bags and bags of masks were being delivered and used because you needed them for your staff and even more so for your patients that were coming in. You were requiring them to wear masks and visitors until while that was still happening.
Yep, we still do, but we don't have to rely so much on the fabric masks because other
now we all have a whole supply of them, right? So we have so many. I'm afraid, yes, we have ones that match our outfits and things like that from day to day. But what can folks still do besides the masks that you don't need as much anymore? But there are other things that never really go out of style that folks can help with.
Right. One thing, if folks know how to knit or crochet or are even willing to learn, we've got people that would probably help teach them. We use something called prayer shawls, and our spiritual care manager, you've met her probably, Linda
she was just here a couple of days ago. That's right. Yeah.
So she's very, very dedicated in trying to give every single patient a prayer shawl, and that is a yarn garment, like a shoulder cover. We've used scarves actually, just to have it prayed over and provide that extra comfort and support for our patients. And so we've had a team rally around that project as well. A lot of churches have gotten on board, and churches were kind of already doing this for their members or people in their circles, but they are also allocating those resources and the shawls to the hospital. But the volume and the needs are high. We're at capacity and beyond capacity right now, and so it's been tough keeping up. So if anybody's interested in that project, we would love their help.
Okay. And these seem kind of, it's not like you're knitting a blanket. These are shawls, so it's a little bit faster maybe project that you could undertake if you're thinking about it. Exactly.
I know there's very formal patterns and things people can follow, but if you know how to do a oblong square, a square,
a rectangle or whatever, right, for a shawl, that's what you're looking for.
Shawl that doesn't take as long, that still works.
Right. Okay.
And it will be put to good use.
Very good. And you're right. I mean, even though you have a lot of folks that do this throughout the year, because of the increase in patient numbers, there is an increase in demand for these types of items, I would think.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's one thing that you could use. What else can folks help with?
Just anyone that can sew. We have a team that is trying to keep up. They still make their little critters. We've been talking about critters for years, so it's like their own homemade stuffed animals, and they have them available for children that have to come into the lab or the ER or radiology for treatment. It just takes some fear out of it and gives them a little comfort.
Nice.
And they always come through with a bag of the holiday fabric, whatever the holiday is, and they're adorable. And so
nice.
They have a hard time keeping up with that project as well. So anybody that feels like pitching in with that, they can reach out to us. And
right. And it really helps, I think, sometimes when a child is coming in for a procedure or whatever, it's a little scary, even the best of times. And now everyone's in masks and other stuff's going on. And so to get a little something they can hang on to. And then they can take it home, right? I mean, they don't have to give it back. They can take it home, which is why you need a supply coming in.
Exactly.
But that's really can help make a visit a little bit more tolerable, I would say, for the child. And maybe mom and dad, too.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, stickers are nice. Still give the little stickers like they do in a lot of offices and things, but it's a little more comforting.
Right. I would definitely think so. And tray favors, you're still doing
We
those?
still do tray favors, which is directed more towards our patients, and it's just little items that can go on the patient tray when they get their meals, and it's just something to brighten their day and cheer them up. And it can be anything from just a nice colorful card saying thinking about you or get well, to I think the most recent versions that we see are those foam kits that you can get in different stores that adhere, and they're kind of pre-cut and things, so they're pretty easy to assemble, but they're really cute and like a lot of holiday style, so little reindeers and snowmen and things.
Nice.
So there's some very crafty and creative people too that can make their own homemade version, including our volunteers. It's pretty impressive what they come up with.
I bet.
Mhm.
Right. Some creative people in this town.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, little origami
Right.
animals
True.
and things like that. So just things to brighten that tray,
Mhm.
and then they can, it doesn't have to get tossed with the
Right. The-
leftovers or
yeah.
whatever. It can just sit in their room, and just a nice reminder that people are thinking of them.
Exactly. And we've seen a lot of those examples too, even for your staff.
Mhm.
As well as we've gone with the pandemic. I know there've been displays outside the windows of the hospital that have reminded patients and staff that the community supports them and is behind them, and just all those things must make a big impact, I would think.
Definitely the
on those
painted
folks.
rocks.
Yes, right.
Notes on windshields. It's been pretty impressive. I heard of an awesome project last year, probably in Wyoming or somewhere, that actually gets a lot of snow, and community members, and in fact it was a football team, I believe, that I had read, that came out and scraped windshields on cars of the night shift.
Oh,
So
hey.
when they got off work, and I thought that would be so cool. So if we ever get snow,
Well, it's
that
going to get cold,
builds up,
so
it will get
even the cold
so-
weather might cause some frost on the windshield. So
Yeah.
good to know. And so that's important as well, and that's a nice way for folks to again be able to help out. And so you gave the phone number, and I'll ask for that again. But I know you've got an Amazon Smiles account. If folks are doing some online shopping, they can certainly designate the auxiliary as a beneficiary of that, right?
Right, and especially this time of year, there's probably a little extra online shopping going on. So any help with that, a collective amount of folks designating can add up, and so that goes into our general fund and is again used for equipment for the hospital and those scholarships.
Right, and that again is a program that Amazon does at no cost to the customer.
Right.
But it helps the customer direct where they want Amazon to make a donation to the nonprofit.
Correct.
And so that's an important thing that they have going on. So that's important as well. And you and I were talking about this story that was on the national news earlier this week that kind of got inside, I think, for the very first time, because I remember when I was in television, you couldn't get anywhere near the ICU with a television camera. And I give kudos to the hospital for being open to show what is going on that floor and in those ICUs, because we hear about it, but we actually got to see it during this reporting from NBC. And so you and I were talking before we came on the air this morning, just even some of the staff that maybe doesn't get to see what is the reality of the ICU, and it's full. I mean, it's more than full. It's
very full. A lot of activity. I've been up there delivering patient belongings and stuff. I don't stay there very long, but it's a different world. You feel like you're stepping into a whole nother world. And so I felt like it was a good reality check for all of us to see that this is really happening. It's legit. It's happening here. And our employees, I'm gonna get emotional, but they're struggling. Sorry.
That's okay. It's real.
So to have that visible, our community too, just to have people see that, and that it's not just somewhere else. It's in their own backyard. It's their family members and their neighbors, and so what they can do to help us, that they've heard a million times, but it's real. And so we were grateful for that. Nobody likes negative press that we wind up on the news because, we are at 200% capacity in ICU and those kinds of things. But it's the truth. It's our reality, and we're working together to overcome that. And that's actually one thing I have appreciated and has been wonderful to see in the organization is how many departments have stepped up and supported each other through this difficult time. And we're doing things that's not part of our job. People are folding gowns. Our volunteers are down there folding gowns because our housekeeping staff can't keep up. They launder over 2,000 reusable gowns a day. And that pile is huge. It's unbelievable. And so our CEO is down there folding gowns every day, helping out. And we're cleaning patient rooms, things like that. So the compassion we have for each other, especially at this time of year, I think we're all in it together, and we're gonna fight to get through it and see it better on the other side. So that's been nice, and it's been refreshing to have this wave of help coming in, and so
that's the one of many bright spots, but it's always nice to think about the bright spots because we really see a lot of dark spots in the news and about the numbers and things like that. And so there's always a silver lining, and the volunteers and the extra effort that the staff is putting through, I think, helps remind all of us that we are all in this together and the community is resilient.
Yep.
And that's important. And we so appreciate the work that you do, Teresa Becker, and your staff and the volunteers and the other groups that reach out to you to help. And again, just to look at that footage and to think about all those people in the ICU, and that's just the ICU. And then there are the patient rooms and the other folks and the families of those patients. Right. I really want people to just kind of think about that this holiday season and just what an impact. If you look at the numbers of how many souls in San Juan County we have lost to this virus over the last almost now 2 years, it is a real number. And you and your colleagues at the hospital see the efforts of that every day. And we celebrate the successes and the discharges. I know you all do. And so it's always great to remind us that is possible. But we are seeing a lot of folks that are getting very, very sick and coming to the hospital, and then they're not turning anyone away. They are making room for them, no matter how full they are. They find a bed for those patients. So
yep, the best they can. It's challenging, I know.
It really is.
Stay healthy.
Yes, indeed. One more time, your phone number, if folks would like to reach out and ask how they can help the work that you and your folks do.
609-6156.
Okay. That's your number at the hospital. And again, you are available to work with folks or groups or other businesses that want to maybe make a donation any time of year.
Yeah, there may be things we're not even thinking of that somebody comes up with, and just their way of being able to help and support us. And we are open to suggestions and any support and help we can get. We appreciate it.
There you go. Well, very good. Well, Teresa, thank you for coming in this morning and being with me on our Solutions from the Street program. It's a great solution to have the team of volunteers at the hospital. So
I agree.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you.